Congratulations, you're nearing the end of your GRE course. I'm going to talk right now about what to do between now and your test, your official test. How do you assess how it's been going, work on the things that still need work once the assigned coursework is completed? And the answer to that will vary from person to person. So before we look forward, let's look back briefly. We showed you this chart in session 1, explaining the sections of the GRE, what to expect on test day. So you know to expect to write 2 essays before you get into the multiple choice portion of the test. And it's the multiple choice portion of the test that everyone thinks of as their GRE score. That's what the sections that give you the 130 to 170 scores on quant and verbal. And you know what kind of questions to expect at this point. We've had lessons on each of these individual question types and individual math topics. Just a brief reminder that you will see 5 multiple choice sections of the test, but only 4 of them count towards your score. So it's possible that one is just an unscored section and you won't know which one doesn't count towards your score. And that's ETS's way of collecting data on questions they've written and are not yet official. They're measuring how people respond to them as an indicator of the difficulty of the questions. One of the sections may be identified as a research section, and that's just the same idea, that only they're letting you know which one doesn't count towards your score. So if they let you know that one doesn't count, it's going to be the one that comes last. Okay, so that you don't lose steam on a section that does count towards your score. So the takeaway here is basically treat everything as if it affects your score. And a word about timing. So the overall section time breaks down this way if you think about the individual question types. For math, it is 2 minutes per problem for most things, but QC is the exception. With quant comparisons, often you can take a shortcut, cheat off the easy quantity. You can plug in numbers. You may be able to tell which quantity is greater and which is less without actually calculating the value. So those are a little bit faster. So aim for 1:15 on those, leaving yourself 2 minutes average on the other types. Be mindful of the fact that data interpretation questions come in a group. So you'll get one set of data and potentially several questions on that. So they're kind of chunky in terms of time management. Verbal timing guidelines are as follows. Generally 1 minute per problem on the vocab questions, text completion, sentence equivalence. Some variations okay. Many people find that it takes them a little longer on a 3 blank text completion than it would on a single blank text completion, and a little bit of that is okay. But the idea is you want to keep it at about a minute average so that you have a little more time on reading comprehension. When in doubt, I would say skew time towards reading comp. All right, and a word about just scoring of this test and the section adaptive nature of it. So you're going to see 5 multiple choice sections, okay, guaranteed at least 2 of math and 2 of verbal, and the 5th one that's unscored can be either. And so for math, for instance, you'll see your first math section. And that's the section that basically everybody gets. It's like a mid-level question, section in terms of difficulty. And based on your performance in that first section, that will determine what you see in the second math section. So we believe there are 3 different possibilities that you could get as the follow-up section, easy, medium, and hard, basically. And we also believe that there's some overlap. So some of the same questions are found in the easy and medium section, and likewise medium and hard. And so therefore they sort of overlap in difficulty. Okay, and there's overlap in the score that can lead you to. So how does the scoring work? If you get the easy section for the second part, well, at that point you probably cannot get the highest score possible. Okay, there's some practical limit. Even if you ace the second section, you're going to get basically the highest score allowed by the easy section. Okay, and that may be better than some of the people who got the medium section got. Okay, so you could end up right here. Likewise, if you get the hard second section and you bomb it, you completely mess up, well, you're still probably not going to get the lowest score possible, okay? Because your score overall is basically the result of both sections. But you always want to do your best on the second section, no matter what it is, because let's say you got the medium section. Well, all is not lost. You're still potentially going to score higher than some of the people who got the hard second section. Okay, so takeaway here is don't worry about it. There's no way for you to know during the test which section you got, and it's kind of irrelevant. Even if you did know, no matter what, your goal for the second section is to do the best you can with it. And remember all the features that you have available to you on the GRE. A lot of these were added to the test recently, or fairly recently, in August of 2001. That's when the so-called revised GRE came out. And a lot of these new features make the test a little bit more user-friendly. So you can hop around from one question to the next with the back and next buttons. Go back and change answers if you want. You can flag questions for review. So you can mark them and then hit the review button to go back at the end and see, what questions did I mark? Which ones do I need to go back and double check? Take full advantage of those and practice doing so in your practice tests. If you do mark a question as one to come back to later, maybe you don't know how to solve it, put an answer down. Okay, put your best guess. And if you don't have a best guess, just put something down. Select something so that if you mark it for review, but you don't have time to come back to it, at least you haven't left it blank. Okay, there is no penalty for blanks on this test, or there's no penalty for wrong guesses, I should say, but there is a penalty for leaving it blank because you automatically get it wrong. All right, so what we've been doing so far in class is doing problems, reviewing concepts, talking about techniques. So you've been attending class. You've also been doing homework on your own and practicing timing and concept issues during practice tests. Okay, so for the next phase, change it up a little bit. Post-course, make sure you've taken a third practice test. And that's so that you can run an assessment report on 3 exams. If you've taken more than 3 exams, great, run the assessment report on the most recent 3. And I'll show you a little bit about where you go to find that. In the assessment report, look for relative weaknesses. Look for topics where you're not doing as well as you are in everything else. So on math subjects, maybe you're doing pretty well on geometry, fractions, decimals, and percents, but algebra is maybe 10% behind those subjects. It would make sense to focus on algebra in that case. And if you notice isolated content weaknesses, it makes sense to review the content there. So feel free to go back to the strategy guides, maybe taking more notes this time, practicing related problems in the official guide, and reviewing practice test questions on those subjects. It's not too late to work on flashcards. You can do flashcards in a number of different ways. You can do concept cards. You can do cards that show a problem solved various ways. You can do cards for rules. Geometry comes to mind. Have a flashcard with the Pythagorean theorem on it, and applications of that. Not too late to do this. And after working on those weak areas, I would maybe list your top 3 weak areas and use that as your study guide for a given period. After you've worked on that for a while and you're starting to feel comfortable with it, take another practice test and see if you've moved the needle in those areas. And it may be that you have, and now 3 other things are standing out as relatively weak. In always improving your weakest area, you kind of make incremental upward movement. So repeat this cycle. Big one for me personally was the vocab. Do a little bit of vocab every day. The 1,000-word list, the flashcard set, you can run this online and on your phone. Very good resource. And literally a little bit each day makes much greater difference than a lot once a week. Okay, so do a little bit, even if it's only 10 words a day. Get in that list and work on it. Okay, and so that is study, basically. But closer to the game day or closer to your official test, switch from our practice tests to the 2 official practice tests made available by ETS. You can find those on ets.org. And those are called Power Prep 2. There are 2 of them available. They are former official test questions, so they're the most GRE-like practice test available. On our website, you can review your practice test. So if you've taken a practice test, this page probably looks a little bit familiar to you. You see your completed exams. And it's likely that you've clicked here, review results, to go see what your score was and look at individual questions and individual explanations. But to assess your progress, big picture, click here. Once you click on Generate Assessment Reports, it'll take you to a page where you can choose which exams to include. So as I mentioned before, always choose at least 3 for the data to be statistically relevant. You need to have enough questions included to get a good report. And always use the most recent 3. And from there, it'll take you to kind of a snapshot of, what % right you're getting, and what are your average times, etc. Review those and study accordingly. So you have a number of continuing resources. The tests are among them. All of your online resources, including these recordings, will stay active for 9 months. Your access to them will be active. And that includes some other workshops that you may or may not have already watched. There's some online workshops, both for Foundations of Math and a Quest for 170 Quant, a little bit more advanced math. And you can always contact our office to inquire if you need an extension beyond the 9-month point. The vast majority of people will take the test within that 9-month period. In fact, 2 to 3 months after completing your course is recommended so you don't get rusty on this material again. Indefinitely, you can attend our Mondays with Jen seminar online. And always available are our forums and our blog. Check those out if you haven't already. If you're in New York City, you can take a practice test at our center, a little bit more like the actual test center than maybe your living room would be. But check back on our website. These resources will continue, but we do occasionally change things. Mostly our changes are to add new resources. So check back and see what's available. Okay, so now closer to your test day. And by that, we either mean the day that you have to take the test because you have a deadline of some sort, or the day you've decided you're ready to take the test. How do you know when you're ready to take the test? Once you've hit your goal score or better on 3 consecutive practice tests. I would even say 3 of your practice tests, 3 of your recent ones. If they're not all consecutive and you kind of know why one test, what didn't quite live up to your goal score, well, then that's probably okay too. Okay? But don't expect magic. Don't score below 160 on all your practice tests and then think that somehow a 170 is going to happen on test day. The practice tests, especially if you look at like the average of 3 or 4 of them, are pretty good indicators of the score you can expect. Okay, so once you've done that, you can feel free to schedule your exam. Bear in mind you'll have to schedule it in advance, especially if you want to take a Saturday test. Saturday is a popular time slot for the test, a little higher demand for that. So keep an eye on the schedule in advance. But once you have that test date on your calendar, you're in the final stretch. Certainly within the last 2 weeks, I'd call it the final stretch. So what's different then? At that point, you want to stop cycling through the study loop, okay? The whole study my 3 weakest areas, reassess, then figure out what is now my 3 weakest areas and study those again. Stop studying new information and stop kind of looping through your weaknesses. If you did that, you run the risk of kind of cramming up to the last minute and overlooking some other things that can actually improve your score in the short term better than studying new material would do. Okay, so game plan is what we want you to do instead, and that means basically, you know what you know, but you make a plan to how to best demonstrate your overall level of knowledge to the GRE. Okay, and so that may mean that you kind of work out a contingency plan for your weaknesses. Okay, everybody has weaknesses, certain areas that they don't do as well in. For me, it's vocabulary. I studied the words that I thought would show up the most, and my contingency plan was to really rely on the words I did know in a sentence if I ran across a situation where I didn't know the word, a word or two. And if I really was stuck, even after kind of leveraging what I did know, I would make a guess on those because I know that additional time thinking about those questions won't help me on test day. And I wanted to save my time for reading comp where I really thought extra time actually would help me. So for you, it may be different things, but assess the data honestly, okay? Really be clear-sighted about what your strengths and weaknesses are. And develop a strategy. So that may mean, you're going to guess in a certain situation. You're going to spend more time on the things that matter or the things where extra time will pay off. And saying that you're going to do a certain thing, saying that you're going to guess on certain types of problems is different from actually doing it. So put your plan into action on the later practice tests that you do. All right, so some final do's and don'ts. The do's kind of strike me as fairly obvious. You want to take the breaks that they give you. Why not? Get new scrap paper at each break, just so you have a clean slate to use. Read the test center rules so you know what to expect, and get there early. One thing that you should expect is that you will use that half hour if you get there half an hour early. There's some paperwork to fill out. There's a statement you have to write out and a whole check-in process to go through. So don't expect to waltz in there and then just sit down and start writing your essays. There is some check-in stuff to do. Under the don'ts, I would really emphasize number 4. Do not bring your cell phone if you can at all help it. Leave it in the car. Definitely do not bring notes. Don't bring your flashcards with you. It's like asking for trouble. The proctors at the centers have to be really strict about things, and there have been reports of people having their scores canceled just because they looked at their phone during the break. I heard a story recently about somebody who accidentally walked out into the lobby with the pencil or the pen that they were given, and they got in trouble for that. So they didn't get their score canceled, but it's unnecessary stress. And that brings us to the end. So again, congratulations on completing the course. Best of luck with the official test, and we would love to hear from you once you've gotten your score. You can either, if you're in a class, you can contact your instructor, your regular instructor, or you can email the office and just let them know how it went. Good luck.